the New Balance 1080 version 11 and the New Balance Fresh Foam More version 3. Two daily trainers with thick stack heights and similar silhouettes. So what's the difference between these two shoes? It's time to lace them up and take them for a run. .49 miles, 8 minutes, 36 seconds per mile, 142 beats per minute today. Going for a nice and easy recovery run here in Iowa in the Fresh Foam More version 3. And I went for a similar type of run, an easy run, a recovery run, earlier in the week before I left for Baltimore back in Chicago along the lakefront, a little bit more than 10 miles in the New Balance 1080 version 11, so I could compare these two shoes head to head. Now, before I give you my thoughts on these two shoes and what's the difference between them, I do want to go over some disclosures. The 1080 version 11 is a pair of shoes that I purchased myself, and the Fresh Foam More version 3 is a pair of shoes that was sent to me by Roadrunner Sports for the purpose of review. However, in either event, no one's paying me to make this video or to use the shoe in a video, and no one's gonna get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the 1080 version 11 versus the Fresh Foam More version 3. I think the quick answer to the question is what's the difference between these two shoes, just to cut to the chase, is that the 1080 version 11 is the daily trainer. It's a little bit of a cushioned daily trainer, and the Fresh Foam More version 3 is the max cushion. So if you want more detail on that, let's get into it. First, let's talk about some of the specs. The 1080 version 11 is a 34 millimeter stack height shoe with an 8 millimeter drop, giving us 26 millimeters of Fresh Foam X midsole material. It's an injection molded EVA, which is nice and bouncy, a lightweight material that I've really been enjoying running on for the past several years now. Up top, there is a knit material, at least kind of in this toe box section here. It's nice and stretchy, very flexible, very breathable. I really love this part. But then as you get further back, you get a little bit into this animal print section here, which looks kind of like a neon zebra, where it's a lot less breathable, but gives you a little bit more structure, a little bit more lockdown in this midfoot cage. And going to the back, we've got New Balance's Ultra Heel, which is what they call like a 360 wraparound heel structure, and it ends in a very pronounced Achilles flare. On the outsole, we've got blown rubber with flex grooves cut into it, so that way it keeps the shoe nice and flexible, so that way all the rubber that's on here doesn't make the shoe stiff. Altogether, this shoe comes in at a total weight of 9.2 ounces. Moving on to the Fresh Foam More version 3. In the More, we've got a little bit more of that Fresh Foam X material. It's the same midsole foam, but there's more of it in this one. There's 38 millimeters of stack height in the heel back here, and it is quite a bit of stack height. And there's only a 4 millimeter drop in this one, so that means you still have 34 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot of this shoe, which does mean that there is just a bunch of Fresh Foam X midsole foam here. And to help you kind of get through all of that midsole foam, there is a little bit of a rocker up front, so that way it kind of curls at the toes of this shoe, so that way when your foot hits the ground, it's not kind of getting like stuck. It doesn't feel kind of like a clog or like a big like block. Instead, you're getting a little bit of rolling motion through the geometry of the shoe that helps pick up the back heel as you're going through that foot strike and get going through that gait cycle. Up top, instead of the knit material that we saw in the 1080 version 11, there is an engineered mesh, so a little bit more of a kind of standard material. And then moving up to the tongue, there's a little bit more padding in the tongue. And that's kind of like the theme for the upper in terms of the differences between the 1080 version 11 and the Fresh Foam More version 3 is that there's just like a little bit more of everything. New Balance calls this their really plush shoe. It's their max cushion shoe. And then as you get around to the Achilles flare on this shoe, there is that same Achilles flare. It's not as pronounced, it's not as distinct, but but it's still there. And there's a little bit of padding all around the part of the shoe that's going to be touching your heel back here as well. In the heel, you don't have quite the structure and shape of the Ultra heel that's in the 1080 version 11. It's a little bit more of a standard heel cup, but between the way that this foam is shaped around like the bottom part of your heel and the way there's this extra fabric layer around the little bit of structure that there is in this heel cup, there's just a lot that's kind of like locking the heel in place in this shoe. The shoe's also a bit wider on the base as well, which adds to a little bit more of a stable landing. There's also rubber on the outsole here. There's a little bit more of a percentage of exposed foam, but this is foam that you can run on. It's New Balance's ground contact formulation of Fresh Foam X, similar to the type of foam you see in the Beacon, which has almost no outsole rubber. So you can run directly on it, but there is also a lot of rubber on here, which I don't think is quite necessary strictly for traction. I think traction is part of it, but I also just think it adds that much more to the durability of the shoe. All this more that's on this shoe adds also to the weight. This one comes in at a much heavier weight of 10.8 ounces. So with the specs aside, let's talk about what's it like to run in these shoes and how I would use them and how they kind of fit in, I think, in the New Balance lineup. So the way that I would use both of these shoes are on days where I want a little bit more cushion, and that's regardless of which kind of use case I'm looking for. If I'm looking for something that's a little bit more everyday run, but I want some cushion to it, that's where I'd reach for the 1080 version 11. This is a shoe that you could reach for on a vast majority of your days if you're choosing this as your daily trainer. It's going to be for your easy runs. You can use it for your long runs. You can use it for your recovery runs as well, although that's not my favorite way to use this shoe. And because it is relatively light at 9.2 ounces, you can use it to pick up the pace a little bit as well. Let's say you've got some sprints in there, or maybe you've got a little bit of a early in the marathon training block fartlek session. I feel like the 1080 version 11 is going to be a really nice choice for you. I feel like the change from the 1080 version 10 to the 1080 version 11 pushes this shoe more towards the daily trainer category than in the max cushion category, which is kind of where this shoe used to sit. But now in that max cushion category, there's this Fresh Foam More version 3. So this one's definitely coming in and taking over that space of being the max cushion shoe in the New Balance lineup. And this is a shoe for those recovery runs, which is what I needed today. I had a big weekend of running, going down to Baltimore, put in a bunch of miles over the weekend, ran with a bunch of people, had so much fun. Today, my legs are a little bit beat up and tired from all that fun we had, so I wanted some recovery miles. This was a fantastic choice. Everything about it just feels very plush. It's very soft as you're running in it. And the upper is a little bit roomier than I feel like you're getting in the 1080 version 11. So there's just everything about it is just a little bit more relaxed in my opinion. But at the same time, because you're using the engineered mesh, I also feel like you're also locked in a little bit more stable inside the shoe. So for people that are looking at the knit that's in the 1080 version 11 and are concerned that this just isn't going to be enough to keep their foot locked in, that's where I would look for the engineered mesh that you're seeing in the Fresh Foam More version 3. I do feel like this is a little bit warmer of a shoe, so if that's a big concern for you in these summer months that we're in now, I might look more towards the 1080 version 11. But if you're looking for something that's going to be really helpful to you as you're setting your long run PRs, like your longest runs, not necessarily your fastest runs, but your longest runs, or if you're looking for something to give you just a little bit of extra comfort on those recovery days, on those easy days, then I think that's where this Fresh Foam More version 3 comes into play. Is this something that I'm going to want to use on a day that I have even strides to do, or if I have some speed work to put in there? That's not when I'd reach for this shoe. When I'm looking for a lot of time on feet, if I'm looking for something that's going to be easy on the feet, and not just the feet, but my other joints as well, as it's absorbing a lot of that shock and impact from all those road miles, then I'd be reaching for the Fresh Foam More version 3. That's the way that I would use these two shoes. And I think for a lot of people, both of these shoes can exist in the same closet, in the same rotation at the same time. Especially if you're a larger runner or a taller runner, then I feel like having a little bit more cushion in your daily trainer and a lot of cushion in your recovery shoe, these two are really great options to choose from. So I think that both can exist. But as with all my battle videos or my comparison videos, I like to pick a better one, or which one I like more. And for me, the one I like more is the Fresh Foam More version 3. just because I feel like this is a spectacular example of what a max cushion shoe in 2021 should be. Right now, as far as the max cushion shoes I've tested so far, it's one of my favorites. But the 1080 version 11 is a good shoe, but in this category, or even the subcategory of like cushion daily trainers, it's not my favorite. It's very good, and I know a lot of you really love the 1080 series, but I think I prefer the 1080 version 10 when the 1080 wanted to be in that max cushion category. I think I prefer that one more to the slight changes they made to the 1080 version 11, and I just don't love it quite as much as I did the last version. So while this is good, among the two, I'm picking the Fresh Foam More version 3. So those are my thoughts on these two shoes, kind of head to head and just as an explainer of what the difference between these two shoes are. If you have any other questions about these two shoes or the other shoes that exist in the New Balance lineup along with this shoe, like the Beacon or the 880 version 11, feel free to put them in the comments down below. I'd love to talk to you guys about it there. Or feel free to stop by live stream that I do right here on YouTube Monday through Friday. I'd love to be able to interact with you in the chat there. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Oh, what's going on?